Yeah, it definitely did feel like that. And in reference to his spirituality and religion, I know in the book you referenced that he felt as if his art was his way of connecting to the divine, because he was known as being celibate to a degree, and he considered his work and his art to be all that he needed. So what was the role that his somewhat asceticism played in his life in general?
Well, he never married. He was, I mean, he was very ascetic. One thing he did get from his father, which Vasari tells us about, which is sort of peculiar, monastic, slightly to some to some people distasteful, was the fact that his father told him never to wear anything on his head, so he never wore a hat, unlike most people, even though he lived his life in Rome, which is not a place not to wear a hat, in my opinion. And B, he never washed, or he washed as seldom as he could, because it was said to be bad for your health. It's a sort of hermit who never washes. And Vasari describes once, in a quite grisly fashion, he describes watching Michelangelo during one of the rare occasions when he used to take off his buskins, which are these sort of knee-length tights or socks that they used to wear in those days. And he said that the skin came off them, so it was as if Michelangelo was like a snake shedding his skin. So he was sort of a very peculiar mixture of things, very divine, very inspiring, but also at the level of personal hygiene, it sounds to me like he was a nil out of 10.
Yeah, perhaps needed to attend some more social gatherings, perhaps socialize a bit more.
Certainly didn't do that. He was very much not the social type. Which is why he didn't like Raphael, because Raphael came in, swung into town, the new hit wonder from Urbino, and very young, came in, won the approval of the Pope, was given these great frescoes to paint in the Vatican Library, painted the School of Athens, Parnassus, painted all these classically inspired subjects, really stealing the kind of thing that Michelangelo was doing, and not only stealing them metaphorically, but actually, because Raphael was one of the few people the Pope allowed into the Sistine Chapel halfway through, because halfway through Michelangelo erected a scaffold. So when he got halfway through, the scaffold only covered half the ceiling. So when he got halfway through, he had to come down, take the scaffolding down, and re-erect it so that he could then paint the second half. At which point, if you stood on the floor of the Sistine Chapel, the first half, which he had painted by then, and which had been obscured by the scaffold, you could now see it. So Raphael went in, saw it, and promptly borrowed a whole load of figures for some of the figures of the prophets and the Sibyls in particular, for some of his paintings. And not only that, he was very, very gifted with social graces, and he was very entertaining. The Pope was, enchanted by his company, whereas the Pope admired Michelangelo, but they didn't really speak to each other that much, because Michelangelo was always too busy in his ascetic bubble, getting on with his work for God.
Thank you for watching this video. To listen to the full podcast, click the link in the description below.